Right, let's dive into this fascinating explainer where we're going to demystify all those uncomfortable digestive symptoms and explore some really solid evidence-based ways to improve your gut health. If you've ever felt like your own digestive system is just, plotting against you, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're breaking down the science of what is actually happening in your gut, pulling from the latest medical research, clinical trials, and behavioral studies. I mean, we've literally all wondered this after a massive meal, right? Usually, we just brush off bloating and gas as this kind of minor, embarrassing inconvenience. But here's the thing. Your gut is an incredibly complex ecosystem, and these symptoms, they're basically its way of communicating with you. So today, we're going to decode that language, separating the everyday, totally normal digestive processes from the real signs that point to deeper imbalances. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The basics of bloat. 2. Understanding SIBO. 3. Practicing mindful eating. 4. Herbal helpers and probiotics. And 5. Safe supplement use. Let's get right into it. All right, section 1, the basics of bloat. Let's look at how our everyday habits actually fuel those universally awkward moments of gas and belching. Okay, we really need to draw a hard line between belching and flatulence because they have completely different root causes. Belching? That's mostly just your body venting excess swallowed air from your upper digestive tract. Usually it's because we inhale our food way too fast, or we're chewing gum, or chugging carbonated drinks. That air rarely even makes it to the stomach. Flatulence, on the other hand, happens much lower down in your intestines or colon. This is caused by the actual digestion and fermentation of undigested food by the bacteria living down in your bowel. Now, the usual suspects for gas are things like beans, broccoli, cabbage, and dairy, mainly because they contain specific carbs that just sit and ferment in your gut for longer. But, and this is absolutely crucial, pay close attention to the red flags here. If you're dealing with diarrhea, persistent severe pain, bloody stools, or you're losing weight without even trying, well, that goes way beyond simple fermentation. Those are serious warning signs of an underlying digestive condition, and it means it is definitely time to consult a healthcare professional. Moving right along to section 2, understanding SIBO. We're going to look at what happens when all that excessive bloating points to a very specific medical condition. I honestly love explaining this concept because SIBO perfectly illustrates how your gut is this incredibly delicate ecosystem that can so easily fall out of whack. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Now, normally, your large intestine is absolutely packed with bacteria, while your small intestine has relatively few. But when the system's motility slows down or the ecosystem gets disrupted, bacteria can start to overgrow in the small intestine. This dysbiosis leads to severe abdominal bloating, real pain, and can even contribute to chronic, low-grade systemic inflammation by increasing inflammatory cytokines right there in the intestinal mucosa. So how do they actually know what's going on in there? To figure out exactly which type of gas-producing bacteria has overgrown, doctors use these really specific breath tests. You essentially ingest a substrate like lactulose, and they measure the gases you exhale. If your hydrogen values spike 20 parts per million from the baseline before that 90-minute mark, you've got hydrogen SIBO. Conversely, if methane values rise above 10 parts per million at literally any time during the test, it's methane SIBO. And this distinction is vital, right? Because it actively dictates the exact kind of treatment you're going to receive. Okay, section 3, practicing mindful eating. Before we just start throwing pills or super strict diets at these imbalances, let's look at a foundational behavioral fix. Check out this stark contrast between true physical hunger and emotional eating. I mean, in your crazy, fast-paced world, we are constantly bombarded by stress and external cues, like, just smelling a bakery on your walk home. Emotional hunger hits you suddenly, and you usually crave something very specific. Physical hunger, though, it builds gradually, it's open to various nutritious options, and most importantly, it naturally stops when you're full. Recognizing this difference is literally your first line of defense against overloading your digestive system. These steps seem simple, but they are essential. Why? Because slowing down literally gives your brain the time it actually needs to realize, hey, my stomach is full. When we eat mindlessly scrolling on our phones or watching TV, we completely ignore our body's physical cues. By simply turning off the screen, chewing thoroughly, and eating in silence for maybe just one meal a day, you can restore your attention and make eating an intentional act again. This significantly cuts down on the overeating that fuels indigestion and bacterial overgrowth. So the biggest takeaway here is that mindful eating is not just about digestion. It is a proven way to shift long-term behaviors. Get this, a staggering 80% of lost weight is typically regained after 5 years when people rely only on conventional diets without changing their core habits. 80%! Why does that happen? Because the underlying behavioral triggers, things like binge eating, emotional eating, and chronic stress, were never actually addressed. Mindful eating creates this much-needed pause between a trigger and your response, which really empowers you to manage both your weight and your gut health sustainably. All right, on to Section 4, Herbal Helpers and Probiotics. Let's see how natural supplements are actually being used alongside traditional medical treatments today. There is often this massive gap between the traditional use of herbal supplements and what rigorous science actually proves today. Take slippery elm, for example. Native Americans traditionally used it for gastrointestinal issues, and science tells us it does contain mucilage, which forms a soothing gel, but clinical evidence for treating things like IBS remains highly limited. Similarly, while probiotics are marketed for overall health and even mental clarity, a recent meta-analysis of 22 randomized trials found basically no significant effect of probiotics on improving cognitive performance. Science is really demanding we look closer at what actually works. But check out this recent clinical trial, the brief SIBO study. It's fascinating because it impartially reports how combining standard antibiotics with specific herbal supplements might actually give patients a better outcome. Standard SIBO treatment relies on an antibiotic called rifaximin, combined with a low FODMAP diet. But in this trial, researchers threw herbal supplements like berberine and wormwood, along with some probiotics, into the mix. The results? Well, both groups saw a reduction in exhaled gases, but the group taking the added herbal and probiotic supplements achieved higher overall clinical remission rates. And this was particularly true for folks suffering from the methane-producing type of SIBO. And that brings us to Section 5, Safe Supplement Use. Let's talk about the reality of the supplement industry and how to actually navigate these therapies safely. Because here is the truth. Natural absolutely does not always mean safe. As the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health points out, the rules for manufacturing dietary supplements in the U.S. are far less strict than those for prescription or over-the-counter drugs. The FDA literally does not approve these products for safety or effectiveness before they hit the store shelves. Because of that lack of strict regulation, you have to exercise caution. That herbal supplement you grab off the internet, it might be wildly different from the exact formulation they used in a clinical trial. On top of that, these supplements can interact dangerously with your prescribed medications or even pose risks if you have an upcoming surgery. And a lot of them remain completely untested in pregnant women, nursing mothers, and kids. You absolutely must consult your healthcare provider before adding new herbal therapies or probiotics to your routine, just to ensure you aren't accidentally doing more harm than good to your gut. So, I really hope this explainer has empowered you to look at your digestion as this incredibly delicate ecosystem, one that thrives on balance, mindfulness, and making safe, informed choices. Whether you're just trying to eat a bit more mindfully to avoid swallowed air, or you're working with a doctor to tackle a complex condition like SIBO, remember that true gut health is a marathon, not a sprint. So the next time you feel that familiar, uncomfortable rumble after a meal, ask yourself, is your gut just processing your dinner, or is it trying to warn you about something much deeper?